Hi, it's Keith from the Evangelical Free Church, Stony Stratford, and we're continuing our series in the Gospel of Luke. And today we're looking at chapter 6, verses 12 to 16. The passage starts with the phrase, "one of those days," which strongly suggests that this took place around about the same time or in between the two Sabbath events that we looked at in previous weeks. That's where the Pharisees and the teachers of the law were challenging Jesus. But Jesus is not distracted from what he came to do. And this is a key event because we actually read that he spent all night in prayer before he appointed these men as apostles. Sometimes in a film or a book, you get something that seems insignificant at the time, but later has great significance. I'm a big fan of the Marvel Avengers films, and in those you come across these things called the Infinity Stones, but only later do you realize they have great significance. Indeed, the villain Thanos wants to get all of them because it will give him ultimate power. So here we have an event, the appointing of these apostles, perhaps something we've heard about in Sunday school many years ago, which seems to us old hat, but actually it's extremely important. In Mark chapter 3, verses 14 and 15, the parallel passage to this one in Luke, it says that these apostles were to be with him, that he might send them out to preach, and they have authority to drive out demons. They literally were going to be trained by Jesus on the job, as it were. And think of the importance of that. After all, Peter was an eyewitness to all that Jesus said and did, and later conveyed that to Mark, who wrote those things down in his gospel. Matthew and John, both apostles, wrote their own gospels. And they're a mixed bunch. There's Peter, very quick to say something, not always sure he's got his mouth and brain in gear, but certainly someone who never holds back. There's James and John, and we've got a very interesting human touch here that we know that Jesus gave them the nickname, the Sons of Thunder. They were obviously brothers who sort of had a love-hate relationship and tended to explode at each other. There's Simon, the zealot. Someone perhaps before he met Jesus just wanted to drive the Romans out of Israel. Someone who would have been, in today's language, would have been seen at that time as a terrorist before he met Jesus. But this also tells us nothing happens by chance. When we come right to the end of the passage, we read this: Judas, son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. Verse 16 is very, very poignant. You see, Luke seems to be signaling something to us. There's no accidents where God or Jesus is concerned. What do we take from this? Well, firstly, two things. Jesus appoints 12 apostles. Why? 12 tribes, 12 apostles. This is God's new people. This is the new Israel, as it were. But what about the appointment of Judas? Was that just a sad mistake that led to Jesus being betrayed and dying? Well, we know from John 2 and verse 24, Jesus knew what was in a man. He knew the hearts of men. And so there's no accident here. Indeed, in Acts chapter 2 and verses 23 and 24, we read this: This man, that's Jesus, was handed over to you by God's set purpose and foreknowledge, and you, with the help of wicked men, put him to death by nailing him to the cross. But God raised him from the dead, freeing him from the agony of death because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him. Here's the picture. Here's the real focus. Nothing happens by accident where Jesus is concerned. Judas is appointed with God's foreknowledge. This is part of God's plan. What does it mean? Well, there's a quote from a psalm which David wrote. You will not let your Holy One see decay. And before that it says, you will not abandon me to the grave. Those who put their trust in Jesus and have their sins forgiven have a hope for the future because everything in God's plan was perfect. There was a purpose. Thank you for listening, but we always like to offer something. So if you're interested in reading a bit more about Jesus, maybe you've got some interesting notions, you want to check out the facts, you can remember a few things from Sunday school or things people have told you, you're very welcome to pick up this booklet from the front of the church. Or if you see this on Facebook or whatever, you can get in touch with me and I'll happily send this to you for free. There's plenty of literature there, but this is a great little book called The Real Jesus. And in 10 minutes, it will really give you a clear picture of what the Bible teaches about Jesus. Thank you so much for listening.